Melinda, you had said recently that you just went to the gym for the first time in a year,
In a
and
year. It was so exciting and so new and different and weird. Oh my
did it feel good?
gosh.
Did it feel good to
Yeah, they
finally
closed
get
down the
there?
gyms. They closed down the gyms around here in the LA area
Uh huh.
for like pretty much most of the year.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, and I've just been at home doing like these little home workouts, like YouTube videos, or like I got like my little dumbbell set,
Mm-hmm.
uh, stuff like that. But it's not the same. I finally got to go to the gym again. That was like, yay! It's like my playground. It's all the things you could do, but it's not the same with the COVID rules and the new normal, right?
Right. Yeah, I remember for me, I was going to a personal trainer when COVID hit, and it was a bit difficult because he was like, it's not even going to be an issue. It's not even going to be an issue. And I'm like, dude, I'm looking at like all the news coming over from China. I'm like, this is going to be a big issue. This is going to fuck us.
Yeah.
And I went in on that day. I'm like, are you sure you guys aren't shutting down? Because they just started shutting down the businesses that day. And he's like, no, we're not even going to pay attention to it. I'm like, I don't think you're going to be able to do that, man. And he was like, I think it's just being overblown. And I'm like, man, I hope so. And as I was there, they were like, yeah, you've got to wrap this up. And like, they had other trainers there working with other people. And they were like, oh, my friend at Gold's just got laid off. Oh, my friend at 24 Hour just got laid off. And like, it just all happened in the span of that hour, that first hour that I went in there. They just like shut everything down. And then they like started reopening and closing and reopening and closing. And
Mm-hmm.
by the end of it, like I was ready to move. I was getting ready to move anyway. I'm like, you know what? Just go ahead and keep the extra money. I know you need it. It's fine. And I'm just
That's
gonna
good.
move.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there was just no way to work out for a really long time. I'm working out. I had to fire my first personal trainer. He was just kind of weird, and I don't know. It
Yeah.
just wasn't. He was kind of chubby too, which kind of made me feel like, dude, what the fuck are you telling me what to do for? Like, you need to
Oh no, no,
focus.
no, 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 no.
I need like someone ripped, you know?
Of course. Yeah, yeah, you're not gonna trust that they know what they're doing. Yeah, if they're not like at their best, no. And
Right.
plus it's uninspiring. So yeah, you did the right
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was really sad whenever all these people in the service industries were just getting laid off left and right, and then what could they do? And then they couldn't even apply for unemployment, like, or they could, but it was all backlogged and weird, and it took
Yeah.
them a long time to actually get some decent money. And like all these politicians or leaders weren't even addressing that issue. Like
Mm-hmm.
they weren't even like, if you're gonna make force everybody not work, then you gotta at least compensate them, because yeah, it really sucks. And then businesses would try to operate under the table,
Right.
right, illegally, and they'd
Mm-hmm.
crack down on that. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. It was
I
kind
mean,
of a.
I think,
It was a shit.
yeah,
It's been a shit show for a really long time. Um, and
yeah,
it's just been really rough. I don't know what the expectation is. People just should just die. Like people have to work, you know.
right,
And
right.
there's, I'm blessed. You're blessed. We work in tech, so like we've been able to kind of, it's been relatively.
Work from home.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been kind of the same, and I've been working remote since like 2015. So that part of my
right.
life hasn't been different at all.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty blessed. I know a lot of people are having trouble, but I had my biggest year yet as far as income last
Oh,
year
that's awesome.
because of
Yeah.
COVID and the nature of the work that I do. It actually works
Okay.
really well for that kind of situation.
Okay.
Um, but
Good.
I feel bad, like I've done my part, I think, in donating to various charities and donating my time a little bit. Probably not as much
That's
as I
cool.
should. But I feel like, there's something that, people like on Twitter and stuff, or people that claim to care. And really the only thing they contribute to is just arguing. They don't actually like if you really care, like go out and feed the homeless. Like if you really care, like what are you donating to? Like what are you actually doing to make the world better other than just like owning people on Twitter? Like
Owning people
it's
online.
yeah, it's like you're not really a fucking freedom fighter. You're
Yeah.
just probably
Yeah.
just a rich fraud. But that's just how I feel. Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what we can do. It's like you try to go out and protest anything, lockdowns or anything, and people get on your case about killing grandma,
Mm-hmm.
which is over. So my thing about COVID is that it's both real and mishandled and overblown. Like
Yeah.
it's all those things. It's it's dangerous and nasty, especially if it spreads to the rest of your body,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the vulnerable people, right?
Right.
But the way they handled it is just like with a hammer. It's just like such a ham-fisted way to handle it. And instead of talking about targeting their efforts towards the seniors, where all of the energy should have been, right? To
Right.
the seniors and to people with health issues. Instead of
Right.
that, it was just like everybody is dangerous to each other. And now we cannot interact with each other because we're dangerous. Meanwhile, they weren't even getting proper PPE for nursing homes. They
Yeah.
were allowing infected individuals, not allowing, in some cases mandating infected individuals into nursing homes. And they weren't counseling people on vitamin D deficiencies. They weren't,
Mm-hmm.
or zinc supplementation that, they're they could have used focused on therapeutics too, but of course, you know, tinfoil hat time. I don't know
Okay.
how far out my idea is, but the whole, you remember that proposal to use that malaria drug,
Yeah.
hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
I
I
forget.
remember what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
Yeah.
they it. I think it was both Fauci and Trump were saying it, but because Orange Man bad, they said like it's terrible,
Right.
um, terrible idea. Even though they were having some success in other countries with that drug,
Mm-hmm.
but that this is an old drug, and you know how big pharma is about old drugs. Like they always have to be developing new ones and selling you new ones. Well, like this, cheapy $5 drug. Like, well, we can't have that. And I just wonder if there were some behind the scenes haggling by lobbyists to push down older drugs like this that may have had therapeutic effects, on the pulmonary respiratory system when it's infected by COVID and similar type of diseases, right? Because other types of diseases have similar effects, and the patient responds well to these older drugs. But no,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't giving him anything. Nobody was getting any treatment at all in the first stages until, they were totally hospitalized and on respirators. And then I don't know what they would do. But by that time, it's just way too late.
Right.
So yeah, those are the main ways I think it was just mishandled. And then we're all blamed for it. Oh, it's because we didn't wear masks enough. We
Yeah.
didn't
Well,
double
I mean, the
mask
whole
enough.
thing, when it first started, it was like, oh, we need ventilators. Ventilators is what keeps these people alive. And then it turned out later that, like, no, it was actually causing more problems than it was worth. And it was only to be
Mm-hmm.
used in, like, an extreme situation. But, like, nobody talked about that at all the entire time. And then when it went away, like, you barely heard anything about how big of a fuck up it was, which I
Yeah, I
found kind of
remember
surprising.
Cuomo. Right, I remember Governor Cuomo was a big thing, was big on the ventilators thing, and
Cuomo
then
fucked up. Cuomo fucked up huge, and then like all this sexual harassment stuff came out, and now all of a sudden, all these people who are on the left are like, we're just learning about everything Cuomo did bad, in the nursing homes and shit. It's like people on the right have been talking about Cuomo in nursing homes for like
oh
eight
sure,
months. It's been
yeah,
going on for so long. Stop. Sorry,
yeah.
my dog's a little
No, I was a big
rambunctious.
nerd. Yeah, I was a big COVID nerd. Like back in January, February, I was getting N95s and looking at the numbers. You could go on the New York Times actually had a good dashboard that broke down the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and the default would show just the cases, the number of cases, which made it look way worse in some places than others because you'd have the biggest cases where you had the most testing,
Right.
right? But you could filter it to the number of deaths per area, which was
Right.
my favorite way to do it. And I would filter the number of deaths, and New York has been a shit show since the beginning. It was the worst. It
Yeah.
was just terrible. There were some isolated areas. Mammoth, California,
Mm-hmm.
was really bad at the
I
beginning
didn't
too.
know that. No. What happened?
Yeah,
What made it so bad there? Is it because there's a lot of older people there?
I think the permanent residents
Got
were
it.
older. And then some people would flee there, from LA or whatever, would flee there to flee COVID, and they brought in the germs, and
Yeah.
yeah, a whole that was just a big mess. But yeah, but New York was definitely the worst for the longest time. New Jersey was pretty bad. You'd see other numbers too. But then I remember Governor Cuomo came out with book, this book about like how he was such a great leader in crisis,
Yeah.
like when this shit show was still going on, and
I
he's like
I
here,
remember.
patting
Yeah.
himself on the back, and
I remember
everybody's
early on, like probably around this time last year, maybe a little later. Like COVID had been going on for a while, but they were saying like, "Oh, Cuomo should be president. We should figure out a way to make him president instead of Biden. Like, let's figure out a way to get him into the election and shit like that because of the amazing work he's doing." And now, like a year later, he's like completely fucked. He's probably gonna have to leave. I dig it because it's fucking over his brother Chris, who's like a total fucking biased asshole. I can't stand
oh my
pundits like
god,
him on the news that like it's
that's
not
the
even
dude.
news. He's just a prick.
Yeah, he's such a
Like
liar. That's the dude who
people
got
like
caught
him
like
are the
out of
exact
quarantine.
things. Yeah, yeah, exactly. People like him are the exact one of the exact reasons why our country is so fucked because they're so dead set on reporting the quote unquote news in like this biased fashion that just gets you pissed off at the other side. And Fox News does it too, but I think
Yeah,
he's like really, really bad at it.
yeah. Like Michael Malice likes to say, the corporate press is factual but not truthful,
Interesting.
and I think they're often not factual as well. There are a lot of times where I fact check them and they're completely wrong. But a
Uh
lot of
huh.
times they are able to frame things in a certain way to make it seem like it's truthful, but it's not. They might,
Okay.
when it comes to the COVID things, though, yeah, the fact is you have a bunch of people dying,
Mm-hmm.
and then they try to frame it as, well, it's because people aren't masking up enough, obviously, or people are still getting together with their families.
Mm-hmm.
They're insisting on family gatherings and whatnot. And these are the people who are killing grandma.
Yeah.
That's obviously not truthful, right?
No, it's not
Even if
truthful at all.
they could say, yeah, the facts are this number of people are dying, but the truth is, it's a big mishandling in terms of epidemiology, right? In terms of controlling these um, a pandemic, they fucked up.
Are you going to get vaccinated anytime soon? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a vaccine cuck.
Did you already get vaccinated? Oh, both?
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, through my job. So I mean, I have my reasons. I totally understand why people would hesitate to,
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't think it should be forced.
Uh-huh.
Um, for me, I think it makes sense because of the contact that I have with my elderly parents.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I gotta admit, social pressures. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I want to travel,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm going to be viewed as irresponsible for traveling unvaccinated and then coming back to my family and spreading it potentially among the elderly and so that sort of thing. So,
I've traveled twice in the past month. Do you view me as irresponsible because I haven't been vaccinated?
are you in contact with immunocompromised or elderly people a lot?
No. I'm here by myself with my
That's a
dog.
different thing. No,
Yeah.
that's a different story. I don't even think that the vaccine is as necessary as they're making it out to be. I think I mean, you live a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
You work out and whatnot, and you're
Yeah.
not obese, and
Thank you.
you don't have um other like pre-existing medical conditions that would make you very vulnerable to
Right.
that. So definitely not. And then this whole thing about asymptomatic spread, I don't think it's really a thing to the like I think pre-symptomatic spread is a thing, but asymptomatic spread, I don't know that they've been able to prove that. I haven't seen proof of asymptomatic spread. And I remember even Dr. Fauci was quoted as saying that asymptomatic spread has never been a big driver of the spread.
Right.
What I think that happens is people get COVID and they start to feel the symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're either in denial or they're ashamed, and so they just keep going about their business. Like I've read anecdotal cases where people travel, they have a fever and they travel, or they have a
Yeah.
fever and they go to a party.
Yeah.
Mid pandemic, they'll still like, they'll just be like, whatever. There was a fella who went to Disney World in Florida.
Uh-huh.
He got on a plane, and even before the plane even took off, people were noticing like this guy is having trouble breathing.
Oh
He doesn't
no.
look great. He had already, yeah, and then like mid-flight, he started getting worse, and even his wife was like, yeah, he's been having some symptoms that might be COVID.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it was, and they ended up, because there happened to be some medical professionals on board. I don't know if they were EMTs or whatever, people who knew how to do CPR,
Uh-huh.
and so they ended up performing like chest compressions on this poor fella. And he's turning purple in front of everybody.
Oh
And
my
like when you
god.
perform these chest compressions, that's like what do you call it? It produces an aerosol, right?
Right.
So that means like tiny droplets of spittle
Mm-hmm.
all over the place, potentially affecting everyone around. And they're doing their best to save this poor guy's life, but it's not being done in a controlled sanitary environment. He should have checked himself into the hospital right away, and then any treatment would have been done, you know, in a sanitary environment by people wearing N95 masks, and then it would have been cool. But for whatever reason, he just decided to continue with his travel plans, and yeah, it didn't end up so well for anybody.
Dude, that is
So
rough.
yeah, he passed away, and I don't know what else happened to his fellow passengers, but so that this is just a case that you happen to hear about, which makes you wonder how many other similar cases has there been?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean,
People
I
go
don't
to
know.
parties, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. Like I definitely agree with you regarding like the obese and the elderly. I don't know why we didn't approach this in a way that's like, okay, if you're obese, if you're elderly, if you have any of these conditions, you are on lockdown.
yeah,
If you are sharing a room with, or if you're sharing a house with somebody else um, that has any of these conditions, you either need to move or you also need to be on lockdown. I don't feel like I should have had to been on lockdown. I didn't have any
correct,
pre-existing
yeah,
conditions. I'm not elderly. I am not obese. There's no reason why the world had to shut down for
yeah.
me. And I know that's like a selfish way of looking at things, but I don't think that
No,
we
it's
handled
not.
this the right way. Well, I know that
It's
you
not.
probably
It's
don't
not
think so,
selfish.
but I think there's a lot of people that would view it as being pretty selfish. But I haven't been vaccinated yet, and I'm on the list. It's not like I'm fucking like, no, I'm not like an anti-vaxxer. I'm just, it's not at my stage in the state that I live in. It's probably not going to be for another month or two. Um, but I'm not in the hurry either. Like I was talking to a coworker, like a very smart, intelligent coworker, and she was saying, that she's had 3 different people that she knows that got the Moderna vaccine and had like severe side effects.
Ugh.
So like rashes and like
Ooh,
one like their nervous system fucking freaked out and like so anytime they got touched, like it fucking was like a super intense feeling, like just
oh my
weird
god.
shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I don't want to be seen as like the crazy tinfoil hat guy. Like, I've been pretty responsible, except for the past month where I've basically just been like, you know what? I've done this for long enough. Like, it's time. Things are starting to open back up.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, like, I've just been kind of staying inside and shit. So I don't want to be seen as someone who's irresponsible, but at the same time, like, I'm very hesitant to just fucking be in a rush to get vaccinated. This concept of a vaccine passport that they've been talking about, do you have any insight into that? Do you think it's actually going to happen? Do you think it's fear mongering?
It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, to distinguish, okay, I believe there might be some other countries who want to see proof of either your negative test results or your vaccination. So in that case, it would be handy to be able to have on your mobile phone a way to prove that you've been vaccinated or that you had a negative COVID test like yesterday or whatever. That would be one thing. But for the US government to require it for everybody, like you can no longer travel.
It's unconstitutional, right?
Well, yeah, I mean it's a lot of things. I get tired of the constitutional arguments because nobody respects it anymore.
That's true. That's very true.
It's just so out the window that I don't think it carries much weight beyond people in certain either like right wing or libertarian circles. Like,
everyone else kind of just rolls their eyes when you bring up the Constitution.
Because it's just already been trampled over so long. I just think, but I still think though we do have rights as individuals, and we definitely need to push back on something like a vaccine passport.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be and it's not going to end with the COVID vaccine too. Like this vaccine passport would, they're just going to give them an inch, they'll take a mile. They'll want you to prove like for all kinds of that you've had all kinds of vaccines. Maybe like every year. And that I don't see the good in that. I mean, Big Pharma does.
Yeah, that was just about to say, it definitely seems advantageous if you work in pharmaceuticals for something like that.
Because they can always come up with new vaccines that that will be required. And then of course, and then there's an equity when it comes to receiving those vaccines too. So not everybody gets them right away. Right.
But
it's crazy.
do you think it's realistic that they're going to try and pass it though?
It's very controversial right now.
Yeah.
I think they'll see pushback both on the left and the right for it. There will be different arguments for it. Privacy is one. Inequity is another. Those are two ways that the left might argue like why it's bad. So, I mean, long term, who knows? But short term, it's scary. We got to do our best to fight it.
Yeah.
Because give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah, it's weird kind of coming out of the pandemic on the other end. I definitely didn't think it was going to last this long, and I didn't think it was going to have this big of an effect on my life in a variety of different ways. I'm really happy that it seems like we're towards the end of it. I think I'm moving again. I don't know if you heard. I was talking about it in my last episode.
No, where to?
I think I'm moving to Texas.
Texas, okay.
Yeah, I went to Austin. I went to Austin like 2 weeks ago, and I fell in love with it like almost immediately. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is fucking great. This is exactly what I need. So I think I'm moving there. I've got an appointment with a realtor, and I got to get the brokerage stuff together. I've got to finish my taxes. So I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row, but like now's the time to like put it together because I'm not planning on leaving until like the start of July. So I'm trying to get it all handled now. So I may be taking another trip out there.
But wait, aren't you concerned about Texas already turning blue because it's already kind of a purple state?
I feel like if anything, I can assist with that. You know,
turning it blue.
No, assist with it not turning blue, keeping it purple. Blue. Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
I understand your standpoint, and there's like definitely a lot of people from California and other liberal areas going in there, but I think at the same time there's people like me who aren't necessarily red or blue, but definitely don't want to see another state go blue. Like California or New York is right now. Just a ridiculous fucking mess, and none of these people want to take accountability for the mess that they've created. It's so
I mean,
frustrating.
it just reminds me so much of California, though. Like, California was red for a long time, and it had this a bit of the Wild West mentality,
Mm-hmm.
a bit of the Spanish colonial history,
Yeah.
right? Had some wealth, and it has rural areas and farmland areas.
Mm-hmm.
It was great, but yeah, immigration, both from inside and outside the United States, really changed it.
Yeah.
A lot of a lot of influential people moved there, and it did take a while. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe with Texas, it's going to take a while. It won't happen overnight, but it looks like it's going to turn blue eventually, like in another 12 years or so.
I'll just move again. Right now, the
Yeah.
biggest motivator for me, like because I've just been working for so long, and I wasn't really doing anything, and now I'm getting back into stand up and like kind of doing decent. And
Cool.
Austin is like the place to do stand up now. So that's kind of just it's like the only thing I actually do outside of work that I really enjoy.
Right.
And it's hard, where I'm at. You know where I'm at. It's not exactly nobody. It's not exactly easy to get the audience on your side when you're a blonde white male right now in Seattle. But I think it's going to be a little easier in Austin, at least in the near future. And if that
Yeah.
changes, I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll go to New York. I don't know. Whoa, nice little belly button shot there.
Shoot.
I
I
saw
didn't mean
that.
for you to see that.
I saw that.
No, my belly button's well covered. You might have seen some midriff though.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah. But yeah, I see your point. I mean, if you're into show business, you're gonna want to be where it's at in terms of that. I don't see New York ever coming back.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think all these people are like, "Oh my God, it's so cheap there," and they think that like they can move in there and then it's going to bounce back. I don't foresee it coming back. So many companies now are embracing a work from home culture that it's going to create a dramatic shift in like where people live, I think. And there's not going to be as
Yeah.
much of a necessity for people to live in like those metropolises, and then they're going to like change. I don't know if it's going to be like a bad thing. I don't know if we're going to see like the New York of the 80s come back or something. But like all these attacks, like particularly on like Asian Americans and stuff, it almost seems like a kind of a glimpse of things to come. Just this kind of like street violence and shit that
Dystopia.
yeah, it would have been considered like unthinkable, even 5 years ago. It's definitely like coming back.
Well,
Sorry,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
I lived in LA through the LA riots, right? Like 30 years ago or whatever. So, I mean, and actually even like 10 years ago, there were issues in San Francisco. I came across an article in the San Francisco Gate. It's SF Gate, which is just like a mainstream.
I'm familiar with
Uh,
it. Yeah.
it's a normal newspaper. It's a pretty big newspaper in the Bay Area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had an article. It's about 10 or 11 years ago. They had an article about how the Asian community was really suffering, was noticing like a lot of violence against them,
Right.
and they brought it up to the city council and to the local politicians, which at that time would have included Nancy Pelosi,
Mm-hmm.
right? She knows she can't play dumb and say this started with Trump saying, Wuhan flu. She can't play dumb because she knew that in her own community this has been going on, for ages.
Right.
She can't play dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so they went to the community to like, to try to get solutions. I don't know what solutions they ever got. I think they talked about like healing issues between the Black communities and Asian communities. There were some class issues too, because Asian communities would sometimes build their small businesses within Black communities,
Mm-hmm.
but then the Black communities there didn't feel like they were getting much from the Asians. They would feel like it was just like, okay, they're taking our dollars, and
Right.
and we go into their stores and they follow us around and stuff like that sort of tension
Right.
that they were dealing with. But I don't know that they ever came to a solution. But this certainly predates the talk of the Wuhan flu or whatever, the coronavirus coming from China. This is
Well, I think that
it may have sparked another flare up,
yeah, I
but
think that
with a bigger.
I think that the concern now is it's like factually increasing in terms of like versus last year versus like the past 5 years instances of
Well, crime in
violence.
general has been factually increasing, right?
That's true.
And that's because of lockdowns. That's a big part of lockdowns because, I mean, even like that, I really think that the Black Lives Matter riots and Antifa riots wouldn't have been nearly as bad had people had jobs, had stuff to do. But after, I mean, so many people have a sense of hopelessness, and that sense of hopelessness can be contagious too. I'm not saying everybody at those Antifa protests or Black Lives. I'm not saying they were all unemployed, but I think enough of them were unemployed or underemployed, or it felt that just that sense of like being oppressed, even if they were pro lockdown. Even if you're pro lockdown and you're inside all day, like that's gonna mess you up.
Yeah. I think
It's gonna
that
mess you up.
I definitely can see why it would flare things up. What has always struck me as weird is the media coverage of it, where basically it was totally irresponsible to do anything other than exactly what the doctors and the government was telling you to do in regards to COVID. And then this George Floyd murder happened or death happened. And then the BLM protests happened, and nobody wanted to say that they were totally flying in the face of everything they were telling us all to do for like weeks or months up till that point, right? Nobody wanted to say like, hey, you guys are making things worse. Meanwhile, a fucking, a Sturgis rally happens or whatever, and the news won't shut the fuck up about it for 3 months.
I felt like I was being
that's a
gaslighted.
super spreader event.
Yeah, I felt like I was being gaslighted. Like the only one pointing out the emperor's new clothes, because like I mentioned earlier, I had been watching the numbers, going on the New York Times dashboard and seeing where all the deaths were occurring. I'd watch those all the time, and then how I'd read about epidemiology and how a lot of times they spread at these big events. Okay, that sounds reasonable. They spread at these big events. It's more likely to spread when people are shouting, or singing. They banned singing from churches, remember, because of that.
I do remember, yeah.
And then all of a sudden the protests happen, and they're saying, well, okay, they definitely should be allowed to happen, which I'm like, okay, freedom of association. I'm a Constitution cuck.
Right.
Freedom of association. Their First Amendment right. That's right.
Right.
But then they're ignoring the super spreader event, and you're seeing videos of these people because they can't hide all the videos. You go on Twitter, and all kinds of amateurs will share their videos, and especially at first, most of the people weren't wearing masks.
Nope.
They weren't even thinking about wearing masks. Like they would, I think like in Portland when they did their little Chaz thing, their little autonomous.
That was in Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple of them, and then they would hold up signs, send supplies, and it would say things like, send water, send vegan meat, send, send this and that and the other. And then I remember noticing they're not saying send masks.
Yeah.
And they're not wearing masks for the most part. Like this in the beginning, right?
Right.
They weren't even thinking, and nobody's going in and like, why wouldn't the local political leaders try to have a dialogue with them and be like, okay, we hear you, Black Lives Matter and all that. However, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We gotta, here's some free masks.
Right.
Like that stuff wasn't even happening. And they were just all that we're saying, the official narrative was, well, racism is just as deadly as COVID-19. So therefore, it's equally relevant that they go out and protest and shout and
That's fucking ridiculous. That's absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that
I mean, I just because I'm pulling my, and then I also think it has to do with the Capitol riots too, right? And again, like going back to your point of like people are just going fucking crazy, and I don't think the Capitol riots would have happened at all, or it would have been significantly less if not for this COVID thing. But they don't.
Yeah.
They never talk about that. It's all
tipping point. No.
Donald Trump and fucking whatever. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like. This shooting. They're saying they're going to charge the guy with a hate crime.
Which
2 of the people he killed. The shooting at the massage parlor.
Oh, yeah.
They said they're going to charge this guy with a hate crime. Even the most, I don't know how many people he killed. He killed quite a few, but 2 of them were white. But they're still trying to say that it was a hate crime. I mean, the guy's obviously mentally ill. Not that excuses anything.
No,
but
it doesn't excuse. But I heard that he himself stated that it was more to do with his sexual frustration. And
I don't even know the whole story here. Can you give me more information regarding this?
I can just give you some sound bites, some little things that I picked up from news organizations on Twitter. No, okay. Well, the police chief, sergeant, whatever police officer was the spokesman at the time. He gave a press conference and he described what that individual had said to the police, which was he had a bad day, and everybody hates this guy for saying he had a bad day. So he had a bad day, and he was a sex addict. He calls himself a sex addict who would go to these sorts of massage parlors for like little, happy endings and whatnot. But he was also, I think he was like extremely online type of person. He was also like deeply ashamed of his sex addiction, and somehow, some way wanted to take out his frustrations on what he thought the source of it was. Now,
people are trying to say that this has to do with he hated Asians. People are saying that like this is a hate crime against Asians.
Right.
But people are, again, and this is just another one of those like unfortunate glaring facts that nobody wants to mention. 99.9% of these massage parlors as they exist within the country are only Asian people. More so than that, when you talk about like sex trafficking, a lot of these are manned or womaned or staffed by illegal immigrants who are shipped off by other Asian people into these places. And they are run quite often by members of the criminal underground associated with, either China or, the Philippines, stuff like that. Nobody wants to talk about that. It's just the white guy's he hates Asian people and it's a hate crime. But, I mean, it's like...
The
sorry,
owner,
go ahead.
The owner, I believe, was a Chinese or Taiwanese businessman. Different class level. I think more significantly, there's a class issue involved in that. Yes, these are women who are trafficked, who are brought over and like
by other Asians. By other Asians. They're trafficked not by white people. They're trafficked by other Asians. Sorry, go ahead.
They come over in like shipping containers or whatever.
From their brothers and sisters that ship them over. And them.
In the Evergreen, Ever Given.
Jesus.
You probably did have like some masseuses stuck on that.
Damn.
God bless.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, they're trafficked, and often it's by other Asians, maybe not the same ethnicity, um, and certainly not the same class, right? We got some class. I'm starting to sound like such a commie now, but
I know.
I really do think that class is so much more significant than race.
It
Because
is.
people on the upper echelons, a lot of them are of every race too, but they're the
Yes.
ones, they do just fine. And
Right.
then the rest of us, yeah, we're just left to just kind of scrounge for their leftovers, and maybe that's why we end up fighting each other too.
Yeah.
That argument about how like yeah, like maybe blacks are resentful of Asians, and that occasionally leads to violence. And not that that's right, but um, well, they would call it white supremacy. I would think it's class supremacy. Actually, that's
Excellent point. I agree 100%.
yeah. I think that class supremacy keeps people at each other's throats, because when we're not allowed to thrive out of our own, self agency, like self determination, that's when we have problems. It's like, oh, this sounds so gruesome. Um, I read this in like an alternative comic strip a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Hernandez, the Hernandez brothers, they wrote a comic strip called Love and Rockets. And sometimes they would write about like deep in Latin America.
I love Love and Rockets. I
Do you
have a bunch
remember
of those.
that?
I have a bunch of the graphic novels. Yeah, with the
The
big titty
graphic.
girls, right?
There was Luna.
Yeah,
There was
Luna. Yeah, I liked Luna. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so there was some that took place in like deep Latin America, or they took place in a Latino ghetto or whatever.
hmm
And I remember they had one story which was like an allegory for this, what we're talking about, where like little kids would get two cats, and
hmm
they would string them up like on a wire, like on an electrical wire. They would tie their tails together
Oh my
and
God.
string them up and on a wire, and just leave them there, and just watch them fight each other to death,
Jesus Christ.
because that's all that they would do.
Right, that's all they could do, right?
Yeah, and then because they're in pain and they're stuck
Scared.
to
Yeah.
each other, they're stuck with each other. And yeah, they're two male cats. What else are they gonna do? But it's not that their fault that they're in that situation. I mean, like if they had their freedom, it would be something different.
Right. That's a
So
good point.
that's kind of like an allegory for, I think, what happens sometimes.
It's a good call.
It's gross. I know it's dark.
No, it is dark, but
It's dark as fuck, but
it's a good
I
call.
think some of that is happening, and the elites don't care. They don't really
And no one
give
wants
a.
to blame them. No, and these rich fucks, they're doing everything they can to fucking, just keep it away from them. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that you're worth, millions of fucking dollars, and you're the one like keeping people down. You're not actually doing anything for people other than trying to get people to hate white people or trying to get people to hate other people just in general.
Well, they give to charity, and they start these charitable organizations. So ostensibly, it looks like they care about people, but uh,
I
that's
doubt the validity of a lot of these organizations as anything other than fucking, just money laundering operations. And I
that
mean, the
happens.
right
That
and the left are
happens.
guilty of this.
Yeah, that definitely happens. Um, or it's just virtue signaling, or a way that they give their friends jobs,
hmm
sort of like a way they start a charitable foundation. They teach some girls in Afghanistan how to ride skateboards or whatever.
hmm
I don't know what, depends. Doesn't matter. And then yeah, they just hire their friends and their friends' children, and they just kind of keep that racket going.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, it's disgusting, but
What are you
anyway.
gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Do we want to talk about anything happy or like light? for
Yeah,
anything?
go for it. I was trying to talk about Texas, but then we brought it right back into politics.
Because that's political. Texas seems cool. I'm sure I would go down to Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. You know, big hair.
So you're gonna come visit? Is that what you're saying? If I move, are you gonna come
Oh,
visit me?
of course I would visit.
Okay,
I
awesome.
already have like a couple dozen friends and relatives who have moved there. I have two sets of cousins. That is, two cousins who have families who have moved there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple of IRL friends, in real life friends who moved there. And I have maybe I don't know, a handful of friends from social media, from Twitter or whatever, who have moved there. So visit to Texas would be fun. And I would love to see the historical places, like to see like the Alamo and, the Southwest, the Spanish colonial history of the Southwest, and to see the geography, to see the nature, to experience the gun culture there, which is different. I presume it's responsible to gun culture, but it's ingrained in their culture.
I'll probably end up accidentally shooting myself in the fucking foot.
You better not. you know better than that.
Well, when I went, I didn't do any of that. Well, I did a little sightseeing. We hung out mostly on 6th Street, which is like their little strip, That's like the cool area.
Okay.
But I saw, who I saw when I was there? Do you know?
No.
I saw Tim Dillon live at a theater performance. A
nice.
Huge sold-out theater. It was fucking awesome.
Did you get to meet him?
No, I didn't get to meet him. He wasn't doing meet and greet because I would have paid extra for a meet and greet with him. But I got to see him perform. It was the first time I got to see him perform. I had tickets to see him perform in late 2019, and I was supposed to go with Booze Tooth, and then Booze Tooth came down and left a day early because because he was just getting hammered, and I had to go to work. I was like, I'm just gonna take you to Orange County with me when I go to work, and he's like, you don't trust me in your house? You think I'm gonna steal? I'm like, I don't think you're gonna fucking steal. I think you're gonna get hammered and either start breaking shit or go out into the general area of the apartment complex with all the security guards and shit, and then I'm gonna get a phone
the door
call.
Open.
Yeah, just something, just come to Orange County. You can get as hammered as you want. I'll drop you off at Hooters. You just drink there all day until they kick your ass out. I didn't even have to be there all day. I only had to be there for 4 hours. I was like, just come here. And he was like, no, I'm just gonna go home. I'm like, fine, fuck. So I missed out on the trip to see him then. And then I bought tickets to see him in Sacramento I want to say it was last October, and then that show got canceled because California went into lockdown again. I was going to go all the way to California to see him. So then I bought tickets to see him in Austin in January, and that got fucking, and I was going to go with Booze Tooth, and then that got pushed until March, and Booze Tooth was like, you can just have the tickets. So I took my girlfriend, and she did not get it at all. She's from Cambodia. So she English isn't her first language. And I mean, Tim Dillon, a lot of his references and a lot of the shit he says, you have to have a basic, you have to have more than just a basic understanding of the language. His show was fucking great. He did 30 seconds of regular material. And then he was like, you guys are really special. I'm going to bring out Joe Rogan to do a few minutes, okay? And everybody was like, what? And fucking went crazy. And he was like, I'm just kidding. Joe Rogan isn't here. He's drinking baby's blood with Sandra Bullock. You paid for me, you fucks. And it was just I looked at her and she was shocked. She was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
What's he talking about? Yeah.
It was an hour of those kind of jokes. And she laughed when everybody laughed, but I feel like she only got 10% of it. But she really made an effort, which I liked. And she was like, I don't understand why there's so many gay people here. Isn't this Texas? I was like, no, Tim Dillon's gay. And she's like, he doesn't seem gay. I was like, I know. That's why it's so funny. Because he's just this fat, gross guy, but he's also gay.
I didn't know he was gay either.
Yeah, he's gay. He doesn't seem gay. You would never guess it unless he actually said it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just, didn't know.
Yeah, but it was an awesome show, and I'm glad. I've tried so many fucking times to see him. I finally got to see him. And when I finally get to see him, it was better than the Comedy Store. It wasn't one of those dumb drive-in fucking experiences. It was like just a legit comedy show, and I hadn't seen one in over a year. So I was like really excited.
Cool.
Yeah. And then like as I'm walking around, there's like so many different comedy theaters, so many different comedy clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, they weren't kidding. Because I hear Joe Rogan talking about it all the time, of course. And then he's talking about opening one. And it was just like, it's so cool because it's like this little metropolis, but then you like go right across the bridge and it's just like the suburbs. And it definitely kind of had like a almost like a mid 90s Berkeley vibe. Like it was kind of crazy and eclectic, but like it wasn't like Berkeley now, which is just like overly fucking liberal, you know? It was a little weird.
Like a Portland or
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like Portland
Yeah.
or like nowadays Berkeley or like Seattle doesn't really fit. Seattle's dumb in its own way. I don't really like Seattle either. But yeah, that was like, did I finally fucking find someplace that I could be really happy at, or like a fresh start just for me? You know, I think I'm gonna do it.
Is that where your mind is right now? And your comedy, your next steps in terms of stand-up comedy and whatnot?
I don't think I'm ever gonna get famous from it, but like I've just been so miserable for so long because like I didn't have any real hobbies except video games. Although I did find another game, and I'll talk about that next if we want to keep it light.
Cool.
But there's a part of me that it feels like it's almost like I never left, you know? I got acclimated way faster than I did before, and I'm getting laughs way faster than I did before, and I just
Nice.
It's just what I want to do. I don't want to be famous, but like if I had like a really like moonshot goal, like if I could do road comedy, I would totally do that. Like not getting famous, being an asshole, you know, just like my kind of comedy, not like TV comedy. But if I could do that on the road and like I work remotely anyway and like get like a little Sprinter van and then just take the dog with me and then I just drive from city to city. I work during the day and I do comedy and then I drive to the next place. Like that's not terrible. Like I could deal with that. But that would be quite a ways out, and I need to get established somewhere first. And, you know, the fact of the matter is I'm never going to be able to get established here in Seattle. I think it's good practice, but I feel like I'm only getting 50% of what I deserve here in terms of reactions because, like, you know, it's just there's just a very liberal mindset here.
Yeah, I can see that. So you're gonna go. Are you keeping your job at Redacted?
Yeah, well, I have a contract that allows me to work remotely. Like I'm not required to be anywhere. I just have to keep them posted of like where I'm actually living, and then my rate may go up or down depending on it because they're everywhere, you know. And then also I have my side gigs and I've got my residuals for my training videos. Like I'm fine. Like I'm totally fine.
Okay. That's cool.
And I'm really blessed. Like.
Yeah.
The first thing I really, you know, my first real goal was like, I don't want to worry about money. And I can proudly say like, I'm not a super millionaire, you know, but like, I don't worry about money. And that's really nice.
Awesome. Cool.
So yeah, I would love to get a house there. I would love that to be my next step. I just get a house there in that area and move my shit over there. You know, it's going to be a giant hassle. I know. I'll probably
Sounds like a pain in the ass.
I probably need to take a week off of work and figure everything out because I don't want to get rid of any of my stuff. I'm hoping I may have to sell my ZL1. I'm hoping I don't have to, but we'll see. After the next couple of weeks will determine if I actually have to sell it or not. But, you know, I get one of those pods, you know, the moving pods instead of like the U-Haul.
No, I don't know. I'm not familiar.
So the pod it's a genius invention. Essentially, they take a shipping container and they just bring it to your house and they drop it off in your driveway and you fill it up with all your stuff and then they come and pick it up and they ship it and then they drop it off in the driveway of your next house.
Oh, so you don't have to drive it.
I don't have to drive it, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more expensive and I still have to worry about how I'm going to get because I have 3 cars, so I don't know. And
that sounds like a better idea, though. That's more safe because driving a U-Haul, like, it's not safe for someone who's not experienced as a truck driver, right? You can't.
I mean, I've done U-Haul trips, but the longest one I did was like from Oakland to Los Angeles. It wasn't that bad, but like it wasn't great either. I certainly don't want to do that from
No.
Seattle to Austin. That sounds like a nightmare. So like really the logistical stuff with my cars is the main thing. I think probably worst case scenario, what I could probably do is fly up a friend. Like I'll ship the 67. I'll have that on a shipping truck, and then I'll have like a friend, and basically all I can say is like, oh, you get to drive the ZL1. I have to get somebody who can actually drive a manual because I don't buy automatics. Yeah. Like, oh, you can drive the ZL1 if you drive it to Austin. I think that would probably be the best way to go. So we'll see.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, so I found a game, and I've been bitching about this for the last few weeks that like I think I was totally down with video games. And then I figured out that was not the case. I found a game called Crusader Kings 3. Have you heard of this game?
I actually did, yeah. When I was working at Riot, I remember there was a special where they were giving it out for free, temporarily or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like all the trad cats like it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah. So it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I kind of wish I were into games because then I could play it. Looks like fun. So
it's not like a very twitchy game, and I don't mean Twitch like the platform. I mean Twitch like reflexive kind of requirements. It's definitely like a strategy game.
Strategy game, yeah.
So I mean, you definitely you have the potential. You can pause it, you can pause time, and really take your time with your decisions. And a lot of it has to do with like diplomacy. Like you start off with a small area of land, and you use like diplomacy to try and get other pieces of land to kind of grow your empire. Another big aspect of it is like the lineage system. So like you're constantly like marrying off sons and daughters to other empires' heirs to try and like form diplomatic truces with them and like use those as leverage to force pieces of land or force them to ally with you when you go into wars with other countries. So like you have to constantly build your army, and there is like military strategy involved and stuff too. But typically speaking, I go the diplomatic route and the lineage route. But it's just a fan-fucking-tastic game, and I've spent, I don't know, I think I put like 30 hours in the past couple of weeks, which is pretty impressive for me in terms of video games, especially recently. And I'm thinking, I'm going back to it. I think I may pick up GTA 5 again and run through the story one more time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting my brain back, and I'm just, I'm taking it easy and just figuring out what I want to do next. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to my next stage in life. I'm getting really happy again. It's kind of nice.
Awesome. How's your dog go?
He's great. He's getting fucking huge. I
really need to. What's that?
What's his name?
His name? Biff from Back to the Future.
Can I call him? Yeah, I know Biff.
No, it's in my headset. It's in my headphones.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and I have him locked out because he doesn't like when I'm just talking. Like he hates when I'm in meetings and stuff. I think it worries him. He doesn't understand why I'm just like talking out loud and like there's nobody else there. So usually when
it's like you're barking. It's like you're bark. There's something you're barking at.
Something, yeah. He gets very concerned about it. But like one thing that I've realized, and it's definitely cemented the past couple of months, is that he definitely needs a friend. But because I'm moving in 3 months, I'm hesitant to get a new puppy now. Because I don't want to have to deal with that, and I feel like it would be much better as soon as I move and get to a place, hopefully with a decent sized backyard. Then I just get a puppy as soon as I land,
Yeah.
But I think that would be really beneficial. He's very needy, I think, as I've mentioned before, just because it's
he's
just
a smart dog, right?
He's extremely smart, but he's just very needy. And
those kind of dogs, they need a lot of like stimulation, Yeah.
And it's kind of just been this thing where like I've really tried to be there for him, which I think has kind of made things worse, so to speak. Like I don't want to say it definitely made things worse.
You feel like you're spoiling him or something?
Kind of spoiling him and like and encouraging the behavior that like he can just like demand attention from me all the time. And I feel like, looking back to my last set of dogs, when there's two of them, that goes away. Like it's just two dogs that really love you, but that can entertain each other at the same time. Which is like hugely beneficial,
Yeah, you're right. No, I remember hearing that about cats too. Like just having two cats is easier than having just one.
Yeah.
Because they will chill with each other, or they'll fight, or they'll play fight or whatever. They'll just kind of entertain with each other or cuddle with each other or whatever. Even though they still love you, it ends up being easier. especially if you have to, especially when you have to leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, like back in the days when we used to actually have to leave the house to go to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the animals like to interact with each other because otherwise it's kind of, yeah. I mean, I get that. Like after lockdown, I get that.
Yeah.
we need other beings to share our space with and whatnot.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a great episode. I appreciate having you on, Melinda. I hope we can talk again real soon. And, you know, I thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope the rest of your week goes great. I hope you have a great weekend. And I'll talk to you later, all right?
All right. Thank you, kind sir.
All right. Have a great day.